Thank you, Honourable Member. As many. The Chair recognized the Honourable Member for Fox Hill.
I'm ready. Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to begin by marking an occasion which I think was responsible in many ways for my engagement in public policy. Today happens to be the 22nd of November, which for many people in my generation is a day that we remember where we were at a particular time of the day. In 1963, I guess I was 10 years old, or just turned 10 years old. And just about midday or so, my neighbor, who lived at the back of me, Virginia, Stewart, she is now, who lives in Grand Bahamas, but lived behind me in Collins Avenue, sent a message through to me that the President of the United States, Jack Kennedy, had been shot. And I ran through the track at the back of my home to her home, and we sat there for the next hour or so listening to the radio as the news was ultimately confirmed that he had died. And I start from that because this is the 49th anniversary of that, and I remember it almost like it was yesterday. And I say that also because many of us remember this young, vibrant man who led the country, our neighbor next door, and as little boys inspired us to become involved in public service. And I just wanted to mark that event, this being the anniversary of the day. And to say also that we propose in Nassau on or about, I think, the 20th of December, to mark the 50th anniversary of the visit of Jack Kennedy to the Bahamas. He is the only sitting U.S. president to have visited the Bahamas. And he came here on the 19th of December, 1962, and stayed until the 22nd of December, 1962, to meet with the British Prime Minister, Harold Macmillan. And they settled something called the Nassau Agreement. And they were later joined by the Canadian Prime Minister, John Diefenbaker, and they planted 3 trees at the corner of Blake Road and the Western Foreshore Road. So we are now in the process of getting that area rehabilitated because the monument that was laid at the time, the plaque, was broken and destroyed. And so we're trying to get it rehabilitated, and we'll have some kind of ceremony to mark that occasion. And we have some indications that one of the members of the Kennedy family are likely to be here on that occasion to mark that event. But I thought that since public policy is what we're actually discussing here today, not morality, not good or evil, but what is the best public policy, and that was the starting point for me as a 10-year-old boy to just say those few words and hope that people will join us on the occasion, which I believe will be the 20th of December out at Blake Road to mark that event and the rehabilitation of that monument. I used to, when listening to the radio in the old days of the glory years of the Progressive Liberal Party, Sir Lyndon Pinling gave a speech once, and I'm not sure who's actually responsible for it. P. Anthony White told me that the person who's responsible for this quote is actually Carlton Francis. And the quote went something like this. He said it, he was making one of his speeches here, and he said, "You can stand on the beachhead of history, but you can't hold back the tide." So, Clarence Bain. And he said it about 3 times. You can stand on the beachhead of history, but you can't hold back the tide. And that, I think, is an apt point, jumping off point for this afternoon's discussion on this issue. Because, as Michael Manley would say, this whole matter is impatient of debate. It is simply impatient of debate. They know, we know, We know they know we know they know. We're a very knowledgeable group. And we all know what's been going on for years and years and years. So you ask yourself, what is this division about? What is this divide about? Such a simple matter. It just seems like every excuse by intelligent people on the face of it is just being used to manufacture opposition to this event. And what for? We all know that at the end of the day, if people vote no, the government says it's going to be bound by what they say. And if people vote yes, the government says it'll do what people say. And this is not about details. You don't need to know any details. This is only about a philosophical question. Do you think that people ought to have the freedom to gamble if they wish? And the answer to that, as a libertarian, has got to be yes. I do think so. If you don't think so, then say no. But I mean, don't come up with all this stuff about you need to know the details and so on and so forth. And then, of course, the most amazing thing this afternoon is every time you meet some goalpost that they set, you say, okay. They say, what was it? They say you're too slow or you're too indecisive. So you say, okay, the date is the 3rd of December. Oh, no. You're rushing. No. You're going too fast. So,
we need more time.
yes, we need more time. Okay. So, more time. So you said you need more time. So, all right, so you got more time. Now they say, let's have a commission. Okay. Commission. But this is the same group. It's the same group now. Who said, we always send in things to committee and commissions. So, that's right. Then you get a consultant, say the consultant no good. That's the wrong consultant. You should get a Bahamian consultant. So the goalposts keep moving. So sorry. Yes. No, nincompoop. But Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Almost got there. Because
Members,
I couldn't believe what I heard yesterday when the member for Montague said, you people. Now, I remember the last person who uttered that as a public statement was a man named Ross Perot, who was speaking to the NAACP in 1992 at the presidential, in the run-up to the presidential elections, right? And he said, you people. And they knew what he meant. You people. You people. I mean, this cultural gap and chasm between us is so wide, and it gets ever wider. And we try to sensitize certain people to the facts of life in 2012, but just impervious. Yes, I'm sure you would wish so. But this is my story, and I'm sticking to it. As I was saying, the most ingenious thing now is, after having met all the various goalposts, the goalpost is now moved again. So I had to run downstairs because I couldn't actually believe what I was hearing. The new goal now is that this entire exercise is unconstitutional because the Constitution doesn't provide for us to have an advisory referendum. Now, wow. Boy, that's a new one. So anyway, there's a case, I just want to refer him to this. There's a case which was done because, we're not inventing the wheel. And I said to my colleagues during the break, you know, if we wanted to determine the opinion of the Bahamian public, we could have chosen any mechanism. We could have done, for example, call everybody down to Clifford Park, you know, how they used to do in the old days, sack of flour on one side, you know, you get 5 pounds. The member for Montague would be familiar with this. 5 pounds of flour, you know. When you declare your vote on this side, you say, I can vote for so-and-so. And then when you go on the other side, you get the next 5 pounds. So you get 10 pounds of flour. We could have done that. You know, the yes votes line up on the western side, the no votes on the eastern side. And, you know, the Prime Minister could have stood, you know, master of all these surveys, says, I spy with my eye, and I think the eyes have it. So we could have done that, you know, all in favor. Yeah. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And the ayes have it. But in Belize, this matter was litigated, and we, up until recently, shared the same ultimate court, the Privy Council. And thanks to the research of Alfred Sears, who's a former Attorney General, he points out that the case, the Privy Council, in the case, the Prime Minister of Belize against the Attorney General of Belize, held that amendment to the Referendum Act, which is not part of the legislative process, and which does not purport to alter the deeply entrenched provisions of the Constitution, but is merely advisory or consultative, imposes no obligation on the legislature and therefore could not violate the Constitution.
Wow. Repeat that.
Say that again. Carl Bethel had it wrong?
The Privy Council.
Are you surprised? Are you surprised?
The Privy Council says, in the case the Prime Minister of Belize against the Attorney General, 2010, UK PC number 7, held that an amendment to the Referendum Act, which is not part of the legislative process, and which does not purport to alter the deeply entrenched provisions of the Constitution, but is merely advisory or consultative, imposes no obligation on the legislature, and therefore could not violate the Constitution.
Highest authority.
That's the Privy Council.
Scrap that argument.
That's the Privy Council.
Scrap that now.
So it is simply a perverse logic. Mr. Speaker, another ingenious argument, and I kept the younger ones now make fun of me because I always have some song or some old story. But I was just saying to myself, I remember sitting in this play by the Nassau Operatic Society called, I think it's called Finnegan's Rainbow. It's an operetta, and there's a certain point. I think Michael Stewart actually acted the character where he comes out and he says, "Doom and gloom, doom and gloom, doom and gloom." The whole side over there acting as if this is the end of the world because we're having a vote on gambling. You know, as if the sky is going to fall, we're going to crash, the Bahamas is going to get destroyed. I mean, just a simple thing for an activity that's been going on for years and years and years and years. Everybody knows, I mean, everyone knows about taking the ball out of the bag. The member of Parliament for Tall Pines was just telling a story the other day about the Baron. And, you know, every time the Baron used to have, he had nice stories because he was a great storyteller. And, you know, the whole thing about the numbers guys in the old days was every time there was a new commissioner of police, the first thing the commissioner of police would do would have a raid on the numbers houses because that showed that the commissioner was in charge and was taking over. And he said at the time, Sir Lyndon was in power, and B.K. Barnaby became the commissioner. And there was a raid. And Toots says he's sitting on the bench in the CDU. And Barnaby walks in, and he says, "Thank God for Barnaby." Says, "Thank God for Barnaby, because if someone else was in charge, only me would have been locked up in here today. But at least you lock up everybody else." That was the Baron. Thank God for Barnaby. And so we know what's been going on. We know what's been going on. So all that we are doing now is trying to regularize an activity that has been going on to be sure that the country gets the revenue which it should get from any legitimate economic activity. Why should it continue in the informal sector? And the people who are involved in it, I don't know why suddenly everyone is scared to say they're associated with these people. They grew up with us. Why are we suddenly, all this business about, I have never been in a web shop in my life. I don't know who they are. I mean, how does he expect us to believe that? Who does he expect us to believe that in this small place? You don't know who they are? Gee, man. He must be really like the member said, the ostrich with his head in the sand. So we know who they are. Now, what they're saying to us is that this is all being done for a select group of people. And I think that argument was pretty much dispatched by the member for Seabreeze. But I have another argument, and I say this. This country has had, well, at least Mike Creighton describes it as ups and downs, or booms and busts is what they say. And there have been two booms in this country that go way back in history. One of them is the American Civil War, when people used to run guns out of Nassau through the blockade into the South, because the British were supplying guns to the Confederates to try and break away from the U.S. And there were good times in the town. The Victoria Hotel got built at that time, and tourism flourished, and everything was great, and there was a lot of money going on here. Another time was when the United States decided, for some inexplicable reason, to ban alcohol. And then there was rum flowing through the ports, a lot of revenue coming in, and a lot of families got wealthy off that activity.
What kind of families? Which one?
A lot of families got, and the families that own the waterfront got wealthy off that activity. And they converted the so-called filthy lucre into legitimate funds, which enabled them in later years to create an oligarchy which ran this country for 50 years or more, when they were finally ousted in 1967. And then a new order came in. Now, we have been struggling in this country with the whole question of economic development, the transfer of wealth, of growing the pie, do as much as we should in that direction. The fellow who left us and went and joined their party and became their leader, we thought that he was so grounded in the values of the people from whom he came that he would continue on that path. But instead, he turned on us. He turned on us. And the two times that he had to give the national patrimony to the people from whom he came, he gave away the wealth of the country to the same people who have it. Gave it away. The first example is BTC. We build up all that equity in BTC, and he goes and gives it to people outside the country and says Bahamians can't do nothing, or it'll run in the ground. Bahamians need not apply. Need not apply. Need not apply. Need not apply. The first chance. Secondly, the second example. The second example.
Members.
The second example. He had an opportunity when we're moving the port. He had that opportunity when moving the port to enrich and to help spread the wealth to the people from whom he came. And instead, he handed it to the same group that had it for 50 years, for 100 years, gave it right back to them, and left it there. That's the story. That's the legacy. Now you tell me, these people, these gentlemen who you're afraid now to associate with and say you don't know who they are, they, by their ingenuity, are able to manipulate, do whatever you want to call it. But they did it with everybody's eyes wide open. Wide open. They got licenses to do it. And they were able to help by their ingenuity to transfer some wealth to the people from whom we came. And now you're saying we're trying to fix them up? Well, I don't think anything's wrong with fixing them up if that's what we're doing. Because at least there's some change in wealth creation coming in the country. And we want to make sure that they do good.
Members,
Make sure they do good.
the chair wants to hear Fox Hill, and Fox Hill only, please.
We want to make sure that they do good. That's what we want to do, is to make sure they do good. You know, and I don't know why we know it all happens. It goes on everywhere, so on and so forth. We've been talking. This country is just incredible. I just think when we were trying to amend the law on Dower, I remember that. You know, every lawyer who practices around here knew that Dower is a great hindrance to land transfers. Been so for years. People all said it had to be changed. Until we actually come to change, and everybody says, oh no, you're robbing women of their rights, and blah, 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 and on and on and on, for something which is so simple. And the sky hasn't fallen. Those persons who had a vested right beforehand still have their rights, and those afterwards, we're now in the modern era. That's all. Change has to come. The next thing was the sky was going to fall down because we're going to shop on Sunday. Oh, no, we can't have that. We can't do this, and so on and so forth. Well, you know, we have Sunday shopping now. The sky hasn't fallen down, and the churches are just as full as ever. No change. As a matter of fact, they're fuller. Because some new young men and women have started new churches and movements, and they've attracted, you know, look at the ingenuity of Dr. Miles Monroe. Look at the ingenuity of Sam Cornish up in Abaco and others. New people. Bishop Neil Ellis. Look at all these people. This is all part of new changes going on. I suppose they would say that's supposed to stop too, but that shouldn't happen. But change comes. And so that is my argument and answer to that. I certainly say we're not trying to fix up anybody. There's no deal here that's being hidden. There's no hidden agreement between anybody. What we know is that the advice is on paper, and they must know. And I believe when the Right Honourable Member speaks, he's going to tell all. They sat in a cabinet, and the minutes are clear. It's clear what they discussed. They know what the public policy has to be, should be, what is a sensible public policy. So why are we engaging in this sophistry in here today?
Because they're hypocrites.
Just so you could reap some kind of revenge on the PLP for some perceived slight in the year 2002? That's a nonsensical way to base public policy. I mean, this is something which the two sides in here should say, yep, this is a question. We both campaigned on it. It's a question that we should just take to the country and say, look, ladies and gentlemen, vote your conscience, up or down, yes or no. And both of us will be governed by it. And the only thing that's being done with this bill, Mr. Speaker, is just to provide a framework so that it is clear, that it is authentic, transparent, that the usual organs of the state are used, so there's no question about any trickery or any sleight of hand about the result. And that's all, so that the parliamentary commissioner and the resources of the state can be used to do a proper process. And that's all this is about. But in all this complications and, you know, I'm reminded again, one of my stories, a favorite movie that I like to watch, and I recommend it to young politicians all the time, called The Lion in Winter. You know, the Queen Eleanor, she was really a genius. And she's locked up by her husband. After fighting wars with him and so on and so forth. And there's a scene in the movie. And he's telling her in this scene that he's going to the Pope because he wants to get an annulment so he can have another family. And he says, how? And she says, no, I'm not going to agree to the annulment. And he says, how are you going to stop me? And she says, well, I don't have to stop you. I only have to delay you. I don't have to stop you. I only have to delay you. And I thought of that as soon as I heard all these arguments. All this is stall, delay, defer. Stall, delay, defer. Just hoping that if you put enough roadblocks in the way, then maybe we'll get tired and maybe we'll get thrown away. And then they can throw their hands up in the air and say, victory for the F&M at last. You know? You're 0 for 3 now, right? Yeah, 0 for 3. So you're trying to get one victory. And that's fine. You're entitled to that. So why not just be upfront with the Bahamian public and say, look, because the PLP is putting this forward, we're going to oppose it. Yeah. And we'll say all FNMs, because this is a PLP proposal, all FNMs should vote no. Why not just say that? And then we could all go out and join battle. The gold shirts against the red shirts. And of course, the gold shirts will outnumber the red shirts. And then we can come back after it's all done. But no, we want to use sleight of hand and fancy words and, yeah, trickery and chicanery, is that a word? And, you know, all kind of going around the mulberry bush and so on and so forth. When this is a straightforward proposition. Straightforward proposition. And so I had last night a branch meeting because public discussion has begun. And one of the owners of one of these shops spoke to the branch. And I was telling the right honourable member and some of the members that I was talking about, what was interesting to me was someone wrote on Facebook, I believe it may have been a former member of this place, wrote on Facebook, says, how come we only hear from the Prime Minister? What happened to Fred Mitchell and this and so on and so forth, right? And then another person said that I hadn't polled my constituents to find out what they felt about this, right? Well, let me tell you something about that. I have no doubt that there's some constituents that have deeply held views about this. I have no doubt about that. But where my headquarters is located is right up over BTC. And less than 2 minutes away, I would say 30 seconds around the corner, in the same building, I believe is a place called Island Lux. Now, I haven't been in there myself. I admit that. I have been in these web shops. I've seen them. They seem to be quite sophisticated operations. But all I know is that looking out my window, and I could spy with my 2 eyes, people walking with their feet in Island Lux. So I wonder if I need to poll my constituents on whether they, you know, are for this or not. Because I know that they play the games every day. Every day. And so people are voting with their feet on this question. I mean, that's it. It's as simple as that. So I take that's my poll. And I've said to people that, in my view, and I think I'm on fairly safe ground with this, because one thing I never venture into is to prescribe morals for people. Not my business. I don't get in it. You know, what you do is with your life is your business, you know. And so I just stay out of it because that's a whole other story. I wasn't elected to pronounce on morals. Others have that job and have that calling. And they have spoken to this issue. And earlier, someone quoted the Roman Catholic Archbishop. But what I want to do is to go back. He quotes in the letter the Roman Catholic Catechism, which is the thing that lays out all the rules of the Roman Catholic Church. And here's what he says about the Catechism. It says, games of chance or wagers are not in themselves contrary to justice. Games of chance or wagers are not in themselves contrary to justice. However, the Catechism goes on to make it abundantly clear that games of chance can lead to evil. It notes that such activities become morally unacceptable when they deprive someone of what is necessary to provide for his needs or for those of others. The passion for gambling risks becoming an enslavement. So he then explains, there's a difference between gambling and your becoming enslaved to it. And the Christian doctrine, as I understand it, is a doctrine of free will and choice. It says you can gamble if you want to, or you don't have to gamble. All the people, including myself, that I've heard spoken in here are not gamblers. I don't gamble. I don't see the sense in it. But I don't think myself, as an adult of full age, that I should impose my choices on that person. And I say it with all the caution and that I can muster. That, you know, you have to take care of your family responsibilities and so on and so forth. And, you know, I've been to the racetrack when the racetrack was there, and I saw fights break out with the jockey for pulling the horse and all the rest of it. So I know how that goes. But this, sir, is simply a matter of choice. Very simple. Yes or no. Do you believe that we should be able to have a national lottery and regularize the numbers houses? Simple question, yes or no. And all these complications and smoke and mirror make absolutely no sense to me. Thank you, sir.